Alright everyone, Parlor is back online. Parler, technically, but they changed the pronunciation because nobody understood that it was meant to be like the French word for speak, I believe. Anyway, link in the description to my account there, and you can follow me. I think there's like 51,000 people following me on Parlor, which is fairly impressive because I haven't been on there really actively for very long. And the site really exploded with growth after January 6th because you gotta understand. What you see in the MSM about Parler, Gab, BitChute, fucking whatever, is they're hosting evil people. They're hosting conspiracy theorists and extremists. The reality is most of those people are neither. The idea that we can't peacefully coexist with people with kooky ideas, number one, that are otherwise harmless, I reject. Like the idea that the Q thing, which is a LARP, I don't accept it, but the idea that it's dangerous specifically, is bullshit. It's hokum. That is propaganda spun by the legacy media about a group that they do not apparently particularly like, largely for political reasons. Which is funny because I suspect that liberals were behind that particular LARP existing. But I support Alttech. And the idea is this, and their new host is iterating the same basic concept. Tech sites don't need to editorialize content that is otherwise legal. It's just not necessary. It's not helpful. You end up creating a rather large group of people, many millions or tens of millions of people that become basically cultural pariahs. And when you prevent people from speaking, when you prevent people from fighting with words, sometimes they will be driven to fighting in other ways. That's unfortunate. I think that one of the reasons why crime is skyrocketing in parts of the Western world isn't even just because of the fact that people can't go and get a hamburger. I think that a lot of it is that the people that have legitimate grievances about globalism or legitimate grievances about whatever else in the world aren't even allowed to launch those grievances anymore. The whole point, let's think of the ideological subtext of the First Amendment, for example. Why? Don't look at just what it does. Look at why it exists in its current form. Our founders, that is for the United States, very wisely decided it was a good idea that people's right to petition the government and say, look, you're fucking up, we want to redress of this grievance, that should be protected. People should not be silenced. They shouldn't be shot at or cajoled into a jail cell for merely disagreeing with the government. Why did they think that? Number one, because they had witnessed people being persecuted for that. Number two, and this is sort of the understory of it, the idea is that if they're not able to petition for redress, you end up with violence. Again, if you look at the revolutionary context of the construction of the First Amendment, or of the Constitution in general, you can get a pretty good feel for why it exists in its current form. All of the violence, like, pouring boiling tea down people's throats and tar and feathering tax collectors and shit like that, comes after. There had already been grievances for a number of years by people in the colony, British subjects who felt that they weren't being properly represented. They were being taxed without even the benefit of having a seat in Parliament. They had to send people over as unofficial ambassadors who by and large were poo-pooed by the legislative system there. And they felt sad about this. And of course it was made more difficult by the fact that it took a month to cross the ocean, but it wasn't a good situation. If you can, though, prevent that by giving people a seat at the table and allowing them to speak, that's a good thing. I extend this well beyond the realm of private citizens petitioning or talking to government officials. Why should it not be people having the ability to debate amongst themselves, civilly or uncivilly, online? And that's the other thing. A lot of times people say, well, it's one thing if people have disagreements and want to debate one another, but sometimes they're just getting downright nasty. There's this wonderful thing that was invented long, long ago, back in fucking the 1990s, which is the ability to ignore people. On the internet. Of course, you could always change the dial before that for your TV. There are some people that will listen to the radio and they've got one hand on the phone ready to ring up, the FCC or whatever because they're chronically and perpetually offended and they have nothing better to do. On the internet, you get the same Karenism, I think, where people, they see something they don't like, and instead of just saying, fuck it, and ignoring it or trying to debate it, they demand action. I don't like it, therefore it shouldn't exist, they say. Well, if you listen to these people that are being purged by mainline tech, they have things that they would rather not see as well. Like globalism pissing away all of their money. Shitty trade deals built by globalists. Censorship. I take deep offense at the idea of censorship. It's It's completely and irrevocably incapable of being reconciled with the American way of life. The basic concept of censorship existing in any capacity is purely, in my opinion, morally wrong. I don't say, though, which would be hypocrisy, that people that are arguing for it should be deplatformed. I argue against the existence of censorship out in the open. Instead, though, they will not give you the same latitude. They will default to saying, well, then you're an extremist. Oh my God. You believe people that I don't like should be able to speak freely? That Parlor should be able to exist as a for-profit corporate entity to compete with Twitter? Oh my God, you must be a Nazi or something like that. We hear the same tired canard time and time again, so yeah, you should join Parlor. Some people, by the way, let me dispel a mythology here. Nobody was asked for their social security numbers on Parlor. Phone numbers, yeah, but you're asked that by like most big tech sites. Trust me, if you don't like giving out your phone number, you can get a burner phone, by the way, as V pointed out the other night. Why are you even on the internet at that point? At this point, you really can't avoid it. Virtually all sites are going to force you to verify in some manner. Usually it's going to be by phone. Do I agree with that? No, I think that that's a lack of security on behalf of the internet. Honestly, I think it's something that we need to try to get away with. Maybe Congress should consider whether that's really a secure way forward. Tying your phone data to your online presence seems like something ripe for the Chinese to potentially exploit as a security issue. That being said, I mean, you had to give your phone number for Google, presumably, and for Facebook, which, you know, you're crazy if you're still using. I think Twitter asked for it too. Dude, you get locked out of your Twitter account, they'll say, well, you need to upload a picture of your photo ID. It's been asked for by all these sites. Several people the other day were saying that Google forced them to verify like a passports and shit like that the other day. I'm thinking to myself about how fucking stupid it is, number one, but number two, people complaining about Parler asking for much less data. It's like, come on, you're comparing apples to oranges almost. The amount of data that Zuckerberg has already sold to China on your behalf is voluminous compared to what you've had to give to Parler. That being said, I hope it stays stable. Apparently they've got a smaller host now, and link in the description to my account. You should definitely join me there. But keep in mind, growing pains apply. Gab's had the same problem to an extent, Minds as well, where functionality begins to decrease simply because so many people are talking about the site. You know, if they get 1 million people signing up in a day, it's going to be real hard for them to compensate. So you got to bear with them a little bit and be patient. That's about all. Peace out.